If you're listening right now, buckle in, because what you're about to hear will rewrite everything you think you know about fear, loyalty, and the quiet defiance of humanity. Before we dive into the depths of the Galactic Council's darkest secret, hit that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more stories where humanity refuses to bow, even to gods. Now, let's begin. The chamber of the Galactic Council shimmered like a cage of dying stars. 1,000 luminous beings filled the amphitheater, their translucent bodies pulsing with unease as the hollow feeds replayed the same footage again and again. A planet reduced to glass, its oceans vaporized, its core split open like a fruit under a blade. "This is the third system lost," intoned the council speaker, a being of shifting crystal facets. "The revenant Fong does not respond to negotiation, signal, or threat. It is not a creature. It is an extinction event." Galactic stood at the perimeter of the chamber, armored in dull obsidian plates that still bore the scars of 20 campaigns. His species, the Run, were bred for war, tacticians with cold eyes and colder hearts. But even he felt something move beneath his discipline when he saw the destruction replayed. Not awe, not fear. Something deeper, recognition. He leaned closer to the projection, studying the dark silhouette moving through the wreckage of a burning world. It was vast, quadrupedal, wrapped in organic armor that shimmered between matter and void. Plasma fire curved around it, never touching its hide. The creature turned its head once, and the visual feed fractured. Galactic's second-in-command approached, her voice low and metallic. "Command requests your acceptance. The capture mission has been approved. Your fleet is authorized for deployment at the edge of the Perseus Veil." He didn't answer immediately. His gaze remained fixed on the broken image of the Fong. "How long has it been active?" 72 cycles. It destroyed the Morith colonies, then the Dren outpost. "No pattern. No communication." "Predators always have patterns," Kale murmured. "We just fail to see them." The council speaker's tone sharpened. "Commander Galactic, the Fong must be contained or eradicated. Every empire has contributed vessels. You will lead them." Kale bowed his head slightly, the motion more duty than respect. "If it can bleed, it can be bound." He turned to leave, but the speaker's next words followed him like a shadow. "And if it cannot?" He didn't answer. The silence was its own reply. 2 days later, the combined fleet cut through the cold void of the Perseus Veil, a region so dark that even light seemed hesitant to exist there. Kale stood on the command deck, his claws resting on the console as the scanners painted ghostly arcs across the blackness. Fragments of satellites drifted past the viewport, ancient and pitted with age. "Readings?" he asked. "Trace radiation. Metal alloys consistent with human origin." Kale frowned. "Humans?" The officer hesitated. "Records list them as extinct. Their homeworld was abandoned over 3 centuries ago." The commander's eyes narrowed. "And yet their debris floats where the galaxy's greatest predator hunts. That is not coincidence." The ship's AI pulsed in amber tones. "Incoming transmission, unclassified energy signature, planetary surface coordinates attached." Kale examined the feed. There, beneath layers of atmosphere, was a faint pulse, organic, rhythmic. A heartbeat. 2 actually. 1 massive and irregular. 1 small, steady, unmistakably human. He studied the data longer than he should have. "How is this possible?" he whispered. His second looked to him. "A survivor? A relic of the old human colonies, perhaps." Kale straightened, voice turning iron. "Prepare landing teams. If a human lives where the Fong was last seen, then the creature may have found its lair. And if it guards this human, we may learn how to control it." The fleet broke atmosphere, engines flaring blue against the darkness. The planet below was scarred and wild, forests tangled around ruins of metal bones, rivers reflecting the sky like open wounds. It was a forgotten world, stripped of civilization, yet alive in a way that unsettled him. Kale's transport descended through storm clouds, lightning crawling across the hull like nervous fingers. As the hatch opened, the air struck him with the weight of a long-buried memory, oxygen-rich, full of decay and green things. His boots sank into soil. The ground trembled faintly. "Scanners confirm both signatures nearby," his second whispered. "Human biosigns within half a click. The other is moving, fast." Kale drew his plasma rifle, the sound of charging energy slicing through the rain. "Form perimeter. If it attacks, aim for the eyes. And do not, under any circumstance, make the first move." Branches cracked in the treeline. Every weapon turned toward the sound. Something vast moved between the shadows, slower than legend suggested, deliberate, almost silent. Then a shape emerged, four-legged, armor glinting wetly, eyes burning like molten amber. The revenant Fong. It did not roar. It watched. Kale's heart stuttered once. The stories hadn't captured its presence, the sheer gravity of it as if space itself bent to its will. He raised his rifle but didn't fire. The beast's gaze drifted past him, focusing on something else. A voice broke through the rain, low, human, steady. "Easy, boy." From the underbrush stepped a man, lean, scarred, wearing patched armor that had long since lost its insignia. His beard was rough, his eyes steel gray, his stance neither fearful nor defiant. He moved with the certainty of someone who had survived too much to be impressed by the end of the world. The creature, the Fong, lowered its head slightly, exhaling a rumble that vibrated through the mud. The man placed a hand against its jaw, and the predator stilled completely. Kale couldn't speak. The human looked up at the alien soldiers surrounding him, rain streaking down his face. "You shouldn't be here," he said simply. Kale's voice emerged, rougher than he intended. "You're harboring a weapon that's annihilated worlds." The man's expression didn't change. "No," he said. "I'm living with what your galaxy tried to kill." For a long moment no one moved. Lightning flashed again, illuminating the impossible tableau, the galaxy's deadliest predator standing guard beside a single human, as if sworn to protect him. Kale lowered his rifle. "Identify yourself." The man hesitated, then spoke the name like it was both confession and defiance. "Captain Eli Graves. Former scout, Terran Frontier Corps. And if you're here for him," he nodded toward the beast, "you'll have to ask me first." The storm deepened, wind howling through the trees. The Fong raised its head, eyes burning brighter, the earth vibrating under its stance. Kale's troops instinctively stepped back. He didn't order them to hold. He didn't have to. He only looked once more at the man and the creature, and in that instant he understood what the council never could. This wasn't a prison. It was a pact. And somewhere deep in his chest, under armor and duty, Kale felt something he hadn't felt in a very long time. Respect. The storm thundered overhead and the screen cut to black. The storm had not ceased for 3 days. It prowled across the valley like a living thing, clawing at the ruins with sheets of water and flashes of white fire. Inside a crumbling observatory, Captain Eli Graves sat beside the dim glow of a fusion lamp, oiling a rifle that had seen too many wars. The weapon was ceremonial now, the last of its kind like him. Outside, the sound of steady breathing rumbled against the storm. Shadow Fong lay curled beneath the shattered dome, its obsidian scales reflecting the faint light in fractured glimmers. The creature was still magnificent even in rest, vast, coiled, its body like sculpted iron. Its eyes, half-lidded and calm, flicked toward Eli with a slow intelligence that unsettled him even now. "You ever stop pretending to sleep?" Eli asked quietly. The beast's ear plates twitched and a low sound, not quite a growl, not quite a sigh, rippled through its chest. Eli smiled faintly, leaning back against the cracked wall. "Didn't think so." He'd found it 6 years ago, broken and burning in a crater that used to be a city. The crash had leveled everything for miles. When he'd gone to investigate, he'd expected radiation and ruin. What he found was a god bleeding under the skeleton of a skyscraper. At first he'd thought it was a machine, a weapon from the old wars. Then it had opened its eyes. They weren't the eyes of an animal. They were aware, calculating, and terrified. He remembered the moment vividly, how it had tried to drag itself away as if expecting execution. But Eli had seen too much death to offer more. He'd spoken the first words that came to mind. "Easy now. I'm not here to kill you." It hadn't understood, not at first. But it had stopped moving. He'd stayed against every instinct, patching its wounds with scavenged medgel, melting snow to cool its hide, dragging in carcasses for food. The thing had healed slowly, cautiously, and one day it had followed him back to camp. It hadn't left since. He called it Shadow Fong because calling it the thing felt wrong. Over time he learned its moods, the low rumble it made before storms, the quiet pulse of light that shimmered through its scales when it dreamed. It didn't speak but it listened. And when he spoke he sometimes felt like it understood every word. Now, as thunder cracked beyond the dome, Eli set his rifle aside and stared into the dark. He'd seen the alien ships hours before they descended. The sky had shimmered with unnatural light, and Shadow Fong had risen immediately, restless, pacing the perimeter like a caged storm. He hadn't told it to fight. He didn't need to. The creatures from orbit were efficient, disciplined. They hadn't fired, not yet. That was the only reason Eli was still alive. But he'd recognized their insignia. The Galactic Council. Which meant trouble he couldn't talk his way out of. He rubbed the bridge of his nose, exhaustion pressing behind his eyes. "They'll come again," he muttered. "And this time they won't ask questions." Shadowfang lifted its head, pupils narrowing to burning slits. It made a low sound, a question. "Yeah," Eli said. "They'll probably bring more of those silver-armored types. The one who spoke to me, the tall one, he's a soldier, not a bureaucrat. I can tell." The Fang blinked once, slow and deliberate. Eli's gaze softened. "You're not what they think you are." He meant it. Whatever the council called this creature, weapon, monster, curse, it wasn't the same entity that had burned their worlds. He had seen true monsters, both human and alien. This was something else entirely. A survivor. A being built for destruction that had chosen, inexplicably, to protect. Outside, lightning split the sky. A sonic boom rolled across the valley, distant but approaching. Shadowfang rose in one smooth motion, its claws digging into the earth. "Already?" Eli muttered, standing. He should have known. They wouldn't risk waiting out the storm. He crossed to the observation console, an ancient piece of human tech that still flickered to life when coaxed. The radar screen bled with static, but the signals were clear. Multiple vessels, closing fast. The council had sent an entire squadron. Shadowfang growled, the sound like grinding stone. Eli placed a hand against its flank. "We can't outrun them. Not this time." The creature's gaze shifted toward him. Not panic, not fear. It was waiting for his command. Always waiting. That loyalty twisted something in Eli's chest. "You don't have to protect me," he whispered. "If they fire, you run." Shadowfang tilted its head as if insulted. Eli laughed under his breath. "Didn't think you'd listen." He grabbed his pack, slung the rifle across his shoulder and stepped out into the rain. The sky was streaked with descending fire, troop carriers cutting through the clouds, their thrusters glowing like molten eyes. They landed across the ridge, floodlights slicing through the storm. The aliens disembarked with the precision of hunters. Their leader, Galactic, stood at the center, visor reflecting lightning, armor glinting cold. He didn't raise his weapon. Not yet. Eli walked forward until the downwash from the ships flattened the grass. "You're wasting your time," he called out. "It's not your enemy anymore." Kale's voice carried easily through the storm. "You assume it can change what it is. I've seen worse things change." Eli's tone was even. "Maybe not your kind." The alien hesitated. The others did not. They moved in formation, spreading in a semicircle. Drones detached from their shoulders, hovering like glass insects. Shadowfang emerged behind Eli, massive and silent, the rain sizzling off its armored hide. Its presence sent visible ripples through the alien ranks. Kale's soldiers flinched, even the commander's stance stiffened. Eli lifted a hand, signaling the beast to hold. "You came here to capture it. Fine. But you should know one thing first." Kale tilted his head. "And what would that be?" Eli stepped closer, until the stormlight threw his face into stark relief. His voice was quiet but sharp enough to cut through the rain. "You're too late. Whatever that thing was before, whatever nightmare you think it is, it's already claimed. By Earth." The silence that followed was heavy, charged, alive with meaning. Kale's expression didn't change, but his eyes, sharp and alien, flicked once toward the creature, then back to the man who stood before it without fear. He spoke finally, his voice low. "Then Earth claims its own execution." Eli didn't move. Shadowfang's claws sank into the ground, the air trembling around its form. "Maybe," Eli said. "But you'll have to be faster than him." Lightning flashed, white and blinding. When the light faded, the valley erupted in motion. Soldiers shouting, scanners flaring, the creature's roar splitting the storm apart. And in that instant, Galactic understood that he was no longer hunting a beast. He was standing at the edge of something far older, far more dangerous. A bond that no empire could break. The thunder rolled on and the battle began. The valley burned with light. Plasma fire carved glowing wounds into the earth as the alien fleet's assault echoed through the forest. The air was thick with ozone and the scent of scorched soil. Through it all, the predator moved, fluid, silent, lethal. Shadowfang surged between bursts of plasma, its hide deflecting energy like rain against stone. Every movement was coordinated, calculated. Every strike was an act of restraint. Eli kept pace beside it, his boots sinking in the mud, pulse hammering in rhythm with the creature's steps. He wasn't thinking anymore. Instinct had taken over. He'd fought too many battles to mistake chaos for confusion. The aliens weren't trying to kill them, not yet. They wanted the creature alive. That made them predictable. Left flank, he shouted, voice cutting through the roar. Shadow Fang pivoted instantly, a blur of motion and black armor, slamming into a drone mid-flight. Metal shattered, raining shards into the mud. Eli ducked behind the wreckage, returning fire with a precision that spoke of long years and short mercy. Above, Kalox watched from his command skimmer, jaw tight, eyes locked on the impossible. His soldiers were disciplined, trained to adapt to any environment, but they were faltering. The beast should have torn through them indiscriminately. Instead, it moved with eerie purpose, avoiding kills where possible, disabling rather than annihilating. Report, Kale ordered, voice cold. Commander, it's protecting the human. The creature shields him from direct fire. Kale's mandibles twitched, the only sign of unease. A defensive behavior? Yes, sir. Almost tactical. Kale's gaze narrowed. Below, the man moved in sync with the creature, issuing clipped commands, gestures, even whistles that the Fang obeyed instantly. It was coordination, not chaos. The sight unsettled him more than the destruction. He opened a channel. Human. Identify yourself. Eli didn't respond. He was too busy forcing a reload, firing another burst that disabled a targeting drone. Kale increased the frequency. You're outnumbered, Terran. You can't hold this ground. Stand down and you may live. Eli's voice came through static, edged with exhaustion. Funny. That's what we told your kind once. Kale's jaw tightened. You misunderstand. This isn't a war. It's containment. Containment. Eli barked a short, humorless laugh. You've been trying to contain life for centuries. That's what got us wiped off your maps. Kale hesitated, just long enough for the next explosion to shake the valley. When he spoke again, there was less command in his voice and more curiosity. What is it to you? That thing beside you destroyed civilizations. It killed millions. Eli crouched beside Shadow Fang, running a hand across the creature's neck. Then maybe it's learned something I wish your council had, mercy? Shadow Fang's head turned slightly as if listening. It growled low, a sound like thunder in a tunnel. Kale's calm officer flinched. Commander, she said, council directives forbid negotiation. We're to terminate both subjects if compliance fails. Kale didn't respond immediately. His mind raced. The council's orders were absolute, but the scene below defied everything he knew about the creature. It should have slaughtered the human the moment it was discovered. Yet it obeyed him. Trusted him. That made it more dangerous, or perhaps more valuable. He switched the comm to a private frequency. Graves. What did you do to it? I didn't do anything, Eli said. I found it bleeding to death and I didn't walk away. That's impossible. It doesn't form bonds. You keep saying that, Eli replied. Maybe it just needed someone who didn't see it as a trophy. Kale stared out across the battlefield, his soldiers still firing but faltering under the creature's defensive precision. It could end them in seconds, yet it didn't. His instinct told him he was witnessing something the council would destroy simply because they couldn't understand it. Cease fire, he ordered. The command spread through his units like disbelief. The sudden silence that followed was heavy. Plasma smoke drifted in pale ribbons. Shadow Fang straightened slowly, tail sweeping the earth, its stance wary but not aggressive. Eli lowered his rifle but didn't relax. Kale descended from his skimmer, stepping into the mud, unarmed. The storm hissed around him as he approached the man and the beast. He could feel both eyes, human and alien, on him. You risk much by approaching, Eli said. Kale met his gaze. I have questions that weapons can't answer. For a moment, the rain was the only sound between them. The two men stood separated by species and history, but the same wariness lived behind both sets of eyes. Kale nodded toward the Fang. It responds to you. It responds to trust, Eli said quietly. Something your council doesn't practice much. You think sentiment excuses what it's done? No, Eli said. But it's trying to be something better. I've seen it hesitate before every strike. You know what that means. Kale didn't answer. It means it remembers. Monsters don't remember. The alien commander studied him. The human's conviction wasn't fanaticism, it was belief tempered by suffering. Kale knew that look. He'd seen it in soldiers who had lost everything but purpose. Before he could respond, the sky flashed again. A tremor rippled through the ground. Both men looked up. Orbital bombardment indicators painted the clouds in red. The council had grown impatient. Kale's comm crackled. High command override. Authorization for planetary cleansing initiated. His blood ran cold. No, he said sharply. We have control of the situation. Negative. The Council will not risk contamination. Withdraw immediately. Eli heard it through the overlapping channels. He didn't need translation. His face hardened. They're going to fire on us both. Kale turned back to him, torn between orders and instinct. You need to take cover. My ship. Too late, Eli said. She's faster than their judgment. The Fang let out a rising roar that shattered the valley's silence. Its scales flared with inner light, drawing power from deep within the planet's crust. Energy pulsed through its body like liquid lightning. Kale watched, stunned, as the creature expanded its wings, structures of translucent matter and plasma, wide enough to blot out the sky. It wrapped them around the human, cocooning him in radiant armor. The bombardment hit. A flood of white fire swallowed the world. Sound disappeared. Time fractured. When the light faded, the valley was gone. Smoke rose from blackened craters, the forest reduced to ash and molten glass. Kale's visor flickered, recalibrating. No movement. No life signs. Only the soft hum of static and ruin. He stared into the emptiness, the image of the creature shielding the man burned into his memory. His soldiers waited for orders, uncertain. Kale didn't speak. He felt the weight of what had just happened settle in his chest like a stone, the realization that obedience had just killed something he didn't fully understand. He turned away from the crater, rain hissing against his armor. Recover what's left, he said quietly, and prepare a report for the council. His second-in-command hesitated. What shall I list as the outcome? Kale looked once more toward the smoking earth, his voice low, distant. Unconfirmed. Lightning traced the horizon again, and for a heartbeat, he thought he saw movement, a flicker beneath the debris, faint and defiant. He said nothing, but the word formed unbidden in his mind. Survived. Kalox stared at the crater for hours before he ordered anyone to move. The silence that followed the bombardment was absolute, as though the planet itself mourned what had been done. Smoke drifted in thin, listless ribbons across molten rock, and the scent of scorched ozone clung to the air like guilt. His soldiers worked in uneasy silence, scanning for remains, but each report came back the same. No confirmed life signs, no structural integrity, no proof of survival. The council would call that closure. Kale didn't. He descended into the crater himself, armor scorched and sensors crackling. The ground glowed faintly with residual radiation, the heat shimmering around him as he pushed through the ash. Every instinct screamed that nothing could have survived. Yet something in him, that stubborn flicker of disbelief that had haunted him since he first saw the human and the beast, refused to die. At the lowest point of the crater, the soil shifted. A faint pulse rippled through his boots. He froze, recalibrating his scanner. The readings were weak, chaotic. One signature faint and human, the other immense and fluctuating between organic and energy-based. Kale knelt, brushing aside ash with his clawed hand. Beneath the blackened crust lay movement. A crack split the ground, light spilling out. A wave of heat knocked him backward. When the glare dimmed, he saw it. The creature, half-buried, wings folded inward like a broken fortress. Its scales were dulled, scorched but intact. And at its core, cradled in the curl of its body, lay the human. Eli Graves was alive. Barely. His breathing was ragged, his skin burned in streaks of molten light where the creature's energy had fused to him. Kale stared, unable to process the sight. The Fang had taken the full impact of an orbital bombardment and survived, not by aggression but by shielding. He approached cautiously, lowering his weapon. The Fang's head shifted, a single eye opening to fix on him. It didn't snarl or strike. It watched. Kale raised his hands in peace. I'm not here to finish what they started. The creature made a low sound, almost questioning. Kale crouched beside the human, checking for vitals. The readings were faint but steady. Eli stirred weakly, eyes fluttering open. Still here? His voice was a rasp. Kale nodded. You should be dead. Eli managed a hoarse laugh. You first. For a long moment, neither spoke. The rain began again, soft and hissing against the hot ground. Kale studied the strange fusion of man and beast before him. The way the creature's scales glowed faintly where they touched human skin, the energy flowing between them like breath. It protected you, he said quietly. Eli closed his eyes, too weak to respond. Kale turned his attention to the creature. Why, he asked it. The Fang didn't answer in any way a translator could parse, but Kale felt something then, not sound, not thought, but understanding. The bond between them was not command or control. It was choice. He stood, activating his comm. Pull back the retrieval teams, he ordered. No engagement. Prepare med extraction. His second's voice crackled through the static. Sir, High Command demands a full data report. They're already questioning your delay. Then let them question it, Kale said. Tell them we're verifying the anomaly. The pause on the line was thick with disbelief. Anomaly? Kale's eyes lingered on the two figures before him. The human and the predator. They're connected. Killing them would erase the only proof that coexistence isn't a myth. He ended the transmission before the inevitable protest could come. Turning back, he watched as the Fong shifted slightly, curling closer around the unconscious man. It was dying too, its breathing shallow, the light in its scales flickering. Kale knelt once more. You'll burn out keeping him alive, he said softly. You're linked now. His life drains yours. The creature's gaze met his. For the briefest instant, Kale thought he saw comprehension and defiance. Hours passed. The storm cleared. By the time the evacuation craft arrived, the human was stable enough to move. Kale oversaw the loading personally, his soldiers uneasy under the creature's watchful eyes. The Fong allowed them to take Eli but refused to follow. It remained at the edge of the crater, wings folded, energy pulsing weakly beneath its scorched armor. Kale approached it once more. If you stay here, they'll come again. They'll finish what they started. The Fong lowered its head toward the human stretcher, a low vibration rumbling through the air. Kale recognized it as farewell. He looked up toward the clouds. The Council's fleet was already repositioning in orbit. Once they learned of the survival, they'd escalate. The idea of reporting this truth, that a human and the galaxy's deadliest weapon had forged a bond beyond logic, felt like handing a loaded weapon to a child. Back aboard his ship, Kale entered his command chamber alone. The holographic council projection shimmered to life, 6 figures of light, faceless and cold. Report, Commander, the central figure intoned. Kale spoke evenly. Target neutralized. Human casualty confirmed. No recoverable specimen remains. There was silence, then approval. Efficient as expected. The Perseus Veil will be quarantined indefinitely. Return to orbit for debrief. Kale inclined his head, terminating the channel. The lie burned in his throat, but he couldn't let them near what he'd seen. Some truths, he realized, had to be protected, even from their supposed guardians. He turned to the medical bay where Eli lay under containment shields. The human's vitals were stabilizing, though his pulse now carried faint electromagnetic interference. Traces of the Fong's energy pulsed through his bloodstream like a living code. Kale watched, fascinated and uneasy. Eli's eyes opened, dull but alert. You should have let me die, he muttered. I don't take orders from dying men, Kale replied. Eli studied him, exhaustion giving his words a hard edge. They'll come for it, you know. For him. They'll tear this planet apart to make sure no one remembers. Kale's expression hardened. Then perhaps it's time someone reminded them what fear feels like. Eli gave a tired half-smile. You planning on switching sides, Commander? Kale didn't answer. His gaze drifted to the viewport, where the battered planet spun slowly below. The Council believes it commands the galaxy because it controls its monsters, he said. But they've never understood the ones who choose not to obey. Eli's breathing steadied, a quiet rhythm beneath the hum of machinery. Kale lingered a moment longer before dimming the lights. He turned to leave, pausing at the doorway. Rest, Graves. You'll need your strength. For what? Kale's voice was low. For when we tell them the truth. He walked away without looking back, but the echo of his words hung in the sterile air. In the silence that followed, a faint sound came from the comm system, a deep, resonant vibration like distant thunder. It was coming from the planet below. Kale froze, glancing toward the console. The signal repeated, steady, deliberate. A heartbeat. His breath caught, and for the first time in his long career, Kalex smiled. They had survived. 3 days after the Council declared the mission a success, the first patrol fleet vanished. No distress call, no debris field, just silence where hundreds of ships should have been. Kalex read the report alone in his quarters, the glow of the data slate casting cold light across his face. The Council had dismissed it as a malfunction in the Veil's magnetic storms. But Kale knew better. The pulse he'd heard from the planet, that echo like a heartbeat, he was hearing it again now, faint through the static hum of deep space. He looked toward the viewport. Beyond the starboard field shimmered the Perseus Veil, a swirling curtain of ionized dust and fractured light. Somewhere beneath that veil, the Predator still lived, and perhaps something else had awakened with it. He couldn't ignore the instinct tightening in his chest. The council's lie had bought them time but not safety. In the med bay, Eli Graves had changed. The once scorched veins on his arms now pulsed faintly with blue luminescence, visible even beneath the skin. His reflexes had sharpened. His voice carried a resonance that wasn't entirely human anymore. The doctors whispered theories of neural fusion, genetic rewriting, alien contamination. Cale silenced them all. The man wasn't contaminated. He was evolving. Eli stood by the reinforced glass, staring out into the stars when Cale entered. "You hear it too, don't you?" he asked without turning. Cale crossed his arms. "The signal?" Eli nodded. "It's not random. He's calling." "The Fong?" Eli turned then and Cale saw it, the certainty in his eyes bright and unyielding. "He's not just alive. He's reaching out. He's learning how to speak through me." Cale's mind raced. If the creature could communicate through a human host, it wasn't just instinct, it was intelligence. That made it far more dangerous. Or far more powerful. "What does it want?" Cale asked quietly. Eli smiled faintly. "It doesn't want. It chooses. And right now, it's choosing to protect this world from them." Before Cale could respond, the ship shuddered violently. The alarm klaxons blared. He tapped his comm report. "Admiral, we're under assault. Unknown energy signatures emerging from subspace. 7 entities. They match the Fong's energy pattern." Cale's heart pounded. "Bring us to combat readiness. Shields up. Move the human to secure." The bulkhead split apart before he could finish. A wave of pressure rolled through the corridor, lights flickering, metal groaning under impossible strain. Through the smoke, Eli stepped forward, eyes glowing, energy radiating off his frame in pulses that made instruments glitch and sensors wail. "Stand down," Cale ordered. Eli's voice was layered, deeper, threaded with a resonance that didn't belong to him. "They're not here to fight you, Commander. They're here for me." Cale's soldiers leveled their rifles, but before they could fire, the ship's hull glowed with molten lines of blue. Outside, colossal silhouettes moved through the void, 6 shapes, winged and terrible like living storms given form. The Fong's kin. Each movement rippled space itself. Cale turned to Eli, disbelief sharpening into realization. "You're connected to them all." "They feel through me," Eli said, voice trembling. "They see your fleets. They feel the fear in every weapon aimed their way. They don't understand your kind, Cale. They only know survival." The largest of the creatures approached, its gaze filling the viewport. The Fong. Scars still marred its scales, but its energy pulsed stronger than ever. The ship's AI stuttered as its systems bent under the gravitational pressure it emitted. Cale stepped toward the glass. "You came back," he whispered. Eli's voice echoed like thunder. "It remembers mercy. It remembers you." A transmission crackled through the comm, Council Command. "Commander Cale X, we are detecting unauthorized entities in your vicinity. Prepare to engage or be stripped of authority. This is an order." Cale's jaw clenched. His gaze flicked to Eli, whose expression wavered between pain and something vast, something ancient stirring inside him. "If they attack," Cale said, "can you stop them?" Eli shook his head. "Not stop. But I can redirect." Cale made his choice. "Then do it. I'll hold them off." He turned to his crew. "All batteries stand down. Defensive formation only." "Sir?" "That's an order." The fleet emerged moments later, sleek warships bristling with weapons, engines blazing as they took firing positions. Cale opened a broadwave channel. "This is Commander Cale RYX of the 7th Expeditionary. The entities you detect are not hostile. Any offensive action will provoke retaliation we cannot survive." The Council's voice thundered back. "You have overstepped, Commander. Humanity and the Predators are both threats. You will purge them or be purged yourself." Cale cut the channel. "So be it." Outside, energy flares lit the void. The first plasma salvo streaked toward them, dozens of beams converging. But before impact, a pulse of light burst from the Fong, rippling outward like a tidal wave. The beams bent, distorted, dissolving into harmless fragments. Eli collapsed, clutching his chest as if something vast were tearing through him. Cale caught him before he fell. "Stay with me." "I can't, there's too much." His voice broke into a roar that wasn't human. The entire ship trembled as energy poured through him, his veins glowing like conduits. Outside, the Fong's kin began to move, swift, deliberate, graceful. They didn't attack, they shielded. Their massive forms wove a lattice of light around Kale's vessel, absorbing the council's bombardment. The energy stormed between them in symphonic rhythm, each movement mirrored in Eli's trembling body. Kale could feel it now too, the connection raw and electric. It wasn't just the bond between man and beast, it was harmony born from trust, from an instinct older than war. Humanity had given the universe its first lesson in coexistence, and the universe had finally answered. Eli opened his eyes again, glowing brighter than any star. They want to leave. To go where they won't be hunted. But they need me to guide them. Kale's voice caught. You won't survive it, will you? Eli smiled faintly. Doesn't matter. Someone has to show them what mercy looks like. Kale's throat tightened, but he nodded. Then go. Show them. Eli pressed a hand to the viewport. The light expanded, flooding the bridge in radiance. The creatures beyond responded, wings unfurling like banners of energy. Together they rose higher, their combined power distorting the fabric of space. As the Fang's form began to dissolve into light, Kale whispered into the calm, Council commands stand down. The predators are leaving. The threat is over. Static answered. Then silence. The last thing Kale saw before the light consumed them was Eli's faint smile, and the Fang's eye, watching him with something that almost looked like gratitude. Then both vanished, leaving only a fading aurora across the stars. The sensors recorded no life signs, no ships, no anomalies. But Kale knew better. He stared into the empty sky, the echo of that heartbeat still pulsing faintly through the void. Humanity had not claimed the predator through dominance, nor through conquest. It had done so through choice, through understanding. And as the council fleets withdrew, Kale allowed himself a rare smile. Because somewhere beyond the edge of known space, he could still hear it, steady, defiant, alive. The heartbeat of a predator who now belonged to Earth.